Big ideas in small bites. This is Byte Sized, brought to you by Accenture.
Welcome to today's episode of Accenture's Byte Sized podcast with me, Bella Thornley, as your host. Today, we're going to talk about marketing, and I'm excited to be joined by Matt Rich from BP. Part of Matt's wider role is being Vice President of Marketing Excellence, where he is currently in the midst of leading a major transformation to modernise BP's global marketing engine and turn it into a CFO conversation. This is no mean feat and a topic that many of our clients are beginning to tackle. So Matt, thank you very much for joining today. As I mentioned, you are the President of Marketing Excellence, but what has your journey been to date, and how has that experience helped you in building a first-class global marketing function at BP?
Nice to be talking with you. So yeah, I've been at BP for 15 years, and before then I was at Pfizer and Johnson & Johnson. So always been fascinated by the customer and changing trends for customers, and that's really what's led me here. A passion for making sure that customers are getting what they need and making sure that we as marketeers can deliver that. And, you know, in an increasingly volatile world where change is everywhere, that's a difficult path to plot your way through. And so that's what our endeavours have been for the last couple of years at BP, and we're beginning to find some light at the end of the tunnel on our transformation roadmap.
And can you tell me a little bit more about what your transformation roadmap has been? What have you achieved so
Sounds
far?
grand, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So, you know, we took a careful look at the state of our marketing capabilities at BP, and we found a few problem statements that almost everybody in the organisation could resonate with, right? And I expect people listening to this will be able to resonate with them as well. We were constantly finding we weren't making the best of our technology stack. So, you know, our partners would say, you're really not getting to the gold standard that you should be getting to as a big organisation. And that's really due to complexity. We constantly had to do more with less, right? You know, tightening budgets all the time, tightening resources all the time, and so many more opportunities in marketing than ever before. I mean, it's so exciting to be in this world, but trying to get to them all is difficult. So, you know, that was the ask. And it's also quite difficult to be able to really clearly articulate what your value is in marketing. I mean, of course, that's what we do, but, you know, in a changing world where margins are tight and costs are tight, we need to be really super clear on the value we bring. And we really found that we weren't able to do that in the way we wanted. So that was another big reason for the change, to get more clear on our performance and almost make marketing into a CFO conversation so that we could really clearly articulate what we were doing for the org and how we were impacting gross margin.
That's brilliant. So what is your ambition for the future of BP's marketing?
Well, we've made huge steps forward, right? We've really simplified across the technology stack, across our third-party agency structure, across our own teams, and we're getting much more focused on where the value is. So areas like CRM and loyalty, having a great CX backbone, are increasingly important and focused on in our organisation. We're trying to be really clear on where the value comes from. We're trying to be super supportive of our teams and giving them the resources that they need. We've actually built out an execution centre in Mumbai, so we have a way of being able to deliver marketing execution at a really great cost with really great capabilities. And we've also been able to standardise. That's a big part of our journey across all of the marketing disciplines in BP. So I'm thinking about Castrol and our fuels business, our convenience business, our electric vehicle business. Everybody was essentially doing the same thing, but in a different way. So there was duplication everywhere. You know, there wasn't a standard process to be able to make a social media post, for example. And so what we've done is we've got a lot more disciplined at the way we work. We've got a lot more disciplined in the way we brief. We've got a lot more disciplined in our focus on value. And that's enabled us to remove a lot of the duplication and start to get much more process driven. And that's a way to efficiency.
You've mentioned a couple of quite key points for any form of transformation. So you, at the beginning, you talked about staying customer-centric. You talked about trying to do standardization on there. From my experience as well, and we've historically talked about this, is the importance of taking, obviously, your team and resources on the journey, doing that well. How are you doing that? What's the communications? How are you, taking your teams on that journey, showing them what that future looks like and making sure that they really do adopt that sort of future function?
It's a great question, right? This question around change leadership is so important in transformation. We're talking about marketing transformation today, but I think you would apply it to any transformation in an org. How do you make sure you take the whole org with you? And if I think about what we did and our learnings in marketing, I mean, we certainly did a great job, I think, of managing stakeholders across the business. But the challenge of getting to all 700 marketeers across 140 global markets is really, really tough. And I think one of my biggest learnings has been, unless you can get to every single one of those 700 in a meaningful way and lead change in a way that you understand what it means for all 700 of those people individually, you're going to find a problem, right? And so that's a critical area to focus on. So I think, in marketing change, but also in any change, making sure that you're leading change through understanding the individual and helping the individual understand.
Have you also had to think of how you've changed, I guess, incentives, your performance review, those sort of career paths as well for your teams to help that change transformation?
Yes, we have, right? That's been a huge focus for us, particularly with bringing an extended team in India into the marketing world, right? That's new for everybody. So each local team now has an extended team offshore in India. And so making sure that everybody understands how they're going to work with those teams, how they're going to focus on performance, how they're going to develop their careers has been more important than ever before. And so rightly, our marketers are saying, so what does that mean for my career path? What's the entry point into marketing at BP? How do I develop? How do I get access to all of the roles that I used to be able to get access to? And so that's one of the things that we're working hand in hand with Accenture on to help us take away the badges, think about the team as a whole, and really put a career framework down so that people can understand where to go and what to do. And actually, agentic capability has helped hugely in that space because we have a great framework at BP. Accessing it through agentics and having a language model that allows people to explore that more freely has been a big part of our focus on career development in marketing at BP.
What do you think the future for marketing is in that agentic AI world?
I think we will rely heavily on agents to do the standard marketing execution, decision making and proposals for us. I think humans are absolutely necessary in all that for differentiation and for brands. Brands are only going to stand out to humans if we have really deep, well understood insights, and that doesn't always come from digital solutions. So I absolutely think humans will play a part there, but I think the part will be much more about creativity. I think it will be much more about judgment, and I think it will be about putting a personality into brands that humans love to make sure that we really strongly resonate with our audiences. Again, with partnership through Accenture, we're looking at how we can bring agentics into our marketing process today. So how do we use that for segmentation? How do we use it for research with synthetic humans? Our insights guys have done some brilliant work in that space. We're certainly doing that with briefing so that briefing becomes generative. And starting the pathway early, I think, is super important so that people can start to understand how agentics can drive productivity and allow them more time to focus on areas like judgment, like focusing on the customer, like the internal alignment that we all need to be doing, and just become more efficient marketeers with more focus on what's important to the customer.
Are there any key stats that you're allowed to share with us of sort of key outcomes that you're trying to drive towards, whether that is, the number of customers or the productivity gains?
Yeah, we have really high ambitions for what we want to achieve with our customers. And I talked about having a CFO narrative for marketing. That obviously plays into all of our businesses everywhere. The more articulate we are about the numbers that we're able to generate and the confidence that we have behind the impact of the work we're doing, the better.
Has it been quite difficult working for that narrative? Because a lot of the feedback that we get from clients, especially when we start going into the AI and agentic side of it, is that business case. And has, I guess, the CFO function itself or the finance function itself evolved and to more easily track value from AI and agentic? It is quite a sort of different sort of mindset. How have you found it? Has that been a sort of joint conversation with finance as well of how to track
It's
this?
definitely a joint conversation with finance and also our technology partners. I think BP is very open to the possibilities of AI and actually really supportive of this mission. I think we see it as part of our future and our ability to be able to double down in that space. I think everybody understands as critical. The trick is figuring out where to apply. And I don't think scale has happened sufficiently yet for anybody, let alone BP, but for anybody to have the confidence that we need. So we are focusing our efforts. We have got a really clear view as to what areas to go after, and it's entirely linked to business cases to make sure that we're measuring ourselves as we go. The world is evolving so quickly, it's difficult to know where to put the investment. And one of the decisions that we have pushed through is to make sure that we focus on our own productivity, right? To focus on ourselves first of all.
What do you think your steepest learning curve has been personally?
I'd probably take us back to change. Honestly, I think that is a skill that we all need in business because change is everywhere. So I think being able to balance the change that people focus in their work life with the change that they're going through in their home life is super important. You know, I always as a leader, I would try and be as human centric as I possibly can be, and that means taking time to spend with team members and understand what's going on, understanding how people feel, right? I just think that's super important. And with these change programs, there can be a lot of pressure, both financially and in time, but making time and space to be able to talk to people and understand where they're at, I think is just super, super critical. So that's been a big learning curve, I think, for all of us on these programs, but one that we're beginning to hone as a muscle. And actually it makes BP a better place to work because more and more people are learning that.
Do you think there's a frustration with people of the amount of use of AI, say, in their personal life, and then I'll make it generic, this is not aimed at BP, but then how slow it is for adoption and seeing that value actually at work? Have you heard, do you experience that? You sort of you use it probably daily, and then you get into work and you're like, perfect, we're thinking about this.
Yes. Yeah, look, I think it's small steps, but it's continued momentum, right? If I think about what I'm doing with AI in my personal life, I think that translates very quickly into work. I think there are all sorts of tasks that you can do, and so that's why we're focusing so heavily on helping people with the simple stuff. What are the top tips? What's the prompt of the week? What's the success story? How do we shine a spotlight on people who've done a great job? And I just think it starts to build, and you can see that already.
What is the fear? How do people feel at the moment when you're talking to them when it comes to, is AI going to replace their jobs? Because it is that balance again of productivity,
yes,
profitability, and then obviously FTE headcount.
Yeah. Do you know what? I always think there's plenty of work to go round, right? You don't see anybody twiddling their fingers because there's not enough work to do. And I actually just think as long as AI is pointed in the most efficient areas, there will still be a huge demand for humans to play a big role in all this. And that's the way we focus on it in marketing. So I don't see that fear in our teams at the moment. I actually see a lot of engagement, a lot of motivation, a lot of will to increase capability by using AI, and people are seeing it as an opportunity. And it goes back to what I said earlier. I don't think the maturity is there yet for people to start thinking along those lines. And I haven't seen the scale that I expected to see in AI.
I'm going to ask my question.
Yes.
But, I did pre-warn you.
You did pre-warn me.
I did pre-warn you. If we fast forward 5 years, what headline would you like to see, and what part would you like to have played in making that headline?
So my headline is definitely about humans still being the judge, right? And that's because I don't see a future where humans aren't required in marketing. I see a future where they are really essential to being able to make a difference. And that's the second part of your question, being able to make a difference in a world where things are automated, execution is done seamlessly, but you're still able to put a stamp on a brand because you deeply understand your consumers. So I think myself and others like me at BP will still have a big part to play in that place, judging what's right for the organisation and judging where to invest.
Matt, I look forward to seeing that headline, though it sounds like it won't take 5 years. And with that, we'll wrap up this episode. Thank you very much for joining us. It's been fascinating hearing about the scale of change and impact that you're having across the 700 marketeers and the 140 global markets. And thank you for sharing your top tips. I think these are going to really resonate with a lot of people and a lot of our clients at the moment, as well as your vision for the future. So with that, thank you very much. And thank you very much for those that have listened in. Until next time.